Alright, welcome to Mostly Mets, and today what I'd like to start off by doing here is talk about the article that just dropped this morning by Jeff Passan and Buster Olney on ESPN, and there wasn't a ton of new information in this article. It was kind of the preview to the winter meetings and what they think could happen and their ideas on what's going to happen at the winter meetings. And honestly, I think the biggest thing to come out of this article is that the Mets are clearly involved with Kyle Schwarber. And I put out a video just probably a few days ago now about, Pete Alonso versus Kyle Schwarber and who would you rather have. And I was very clear on the reasons why I would rather have Pete Alonso, so I'm not going to go into all that today. If you want, you can go check that video out. But at that point, it was more like smoke around Kyle Schwarber, and were the Mets interested, and could they get involved with Kyle Schwarber? And now it's coming from both Buster Olney and Jeff Passan in this article that the Mets are clearly one of the teams involved. Now, they also mentioned, the Reds and the Red Sox and the Phillies obviously still probably being the favorite, but a few teams are definitely involved for the services of Kyle Schwarber. We've even heard the Pirates are involved and they've made an offer or plan to make an offer. So, yes, there's clearly a lot of teams involved, and that Kyle Schwarber is kind of holding up the rest of the market so far this offseason. And they think he could be the first big domino to fall. We saw that last season. Juan Soto kind of held everything up until late December until he finally signed. And then everyone else kind of started signing after that. You need the player to kind of set the market. Now, they also said that he's probably likely to go back to the Phillies, but the most interesting rumor that Buster Olney has heard is that the Mets could just really be trying to drive up the price for the Phillies, that maybe they're going to push so hard for Schwarber that, hey, worst case scenario, we don't get Kyle Schwarber, we have fallback options, and we can just make the Phillies pay a lot more than they were originally planning to. I don't think the Phillies planned on having a lot of competition for Kyle Schwarber. He's 33 years old. He's clearly a guy who is a great home run hitter and walks a lot, but is only a DH. He can't do anything in the field. There's a lot of reasons to not love Kyle Schwarber, and I think the Phillies thought, hey, we're going to be the only ones really involved. Maybe another team gets involved, but he likes it here. He wants to come in here. They also talk about how Kyle Schwarber, I think it was Passan in the article, is a guy who can kind of bring a team together, and maybe that's why the Mets value him more than Pete Alonso. Maybe they feel like they need a change in that clubhouse. We've talked about that. They've obviously traded Nimmo. Maybe they're letting Edwin walk. I don't know, but it seems like they feel like they need a change in that clubhouse, and maybe that's part of why they would bring in Kyle Schwarber. Now, I understand a lot of people, when I put out my last video, there was a couple people that kind of said, like, well, they're not the same. One's only a DH, one can play first base, and I understand that. I'm talking about their offensive impact on the team, because they're not going to fill a DH spot and a first baseman spot. They're just not going to do both with two sluggers. So it's going to be Pete Alonso or Kyle Schwarber, and clearly right now the Mets prefer Kyle Schwarber. It's not my idea. It's not what I would do. It just seems like that's maybe the way that the Mets are going. And maybe him being such a great clubhouse guy is a big reason for that. Now, another thing I want to talk about, these guys were kind of felt a little bit differently about what's going on this offseason. Buster Olney basically said that he doesn't know how many teams are really out there looking to spend big, and speaking to agents, he doesn't see big offers coming in, and maybe some teams are kind of standing pat in terms of payroll because they are unaware or unsure of what's going to happen next offseason. And is there going to be a lockout? Is there going to be a strike? And is there going to be baseball in 2027? They're kind of maybe saving their money, holding on to their money for that possibility to happen. Where Jeff Passan seems a little more optimistic. He said, yeah, there's big teams going out there and trying to spend, and there's going to be a lot of moves, and things are going to start to move quickly once Schwarber gets signed. So I don't know. I don't always believe everything Buster Olney has to say. I think the game might have passed him by a little bit, and I definitely don't really believe anything he says about the Mets, because he's a Yankee guy. I don't think he respects the Mets very much. And I don't always take what Buster Olney has to say to heart. But another interesting thing from this article is that Buster Olney says that the Twins haven't really been pushing for a Joe Ryan trade. And the opinion of evaluators say the Twins might just not trade him at all. And it kind of makes sense because he is under control for 2 more seasons, 26 and 27. And this kind of goes against what John Heyman had reported, that the Mets had checked in on Joe Ryan and that the Twins really like Jonah Tong. Now, checking in doesn't really contradict anything that Olney said, and maybe that was the wrong choice of words, because I think it was the fans and the Mets community on X and on social media that kind of ran with this and started making trade proposals and everything, basically saying that Joe Ryan was their main target. This kind of throws some cold water on that. They don't even know if they're really looking to trade Joe Ryan. So is this maybe just some smoke put out there? Have the Mets checked in on Ryan and basically been told, like, hey, we're holding firm on this right now, we don't know, but if you want Joe Ryan, it's going to start with Jonah Tong and maybe some others, and maybe that's why it hasn't really gone anywhere yet, or they're still kind of cold on trading him. Now I want to talk about Joe Ryan a little bit, go over, so, I haven't really talked about him much on this channel because honestly I didn't know that he was going to be traded. Like I wasn't sure what the Twins were going to do. I also don't necessarily see him as a guy that the Mets should really give up a huge offer for. He's a 29-year-old right-hander, obviously in the prime of his career. He's under control through 2027. And last year he had a 3.42 ERA, 194 strikeouts, and 39 walks, and a 1.04 whip in 171 innings pitched. All sounds great. He's a very good pitcher. I'm not taking anything away from him. Career 3.79 ERA and a 1.06 whip. He's a very, very good pitcher. And if you look at his advanced metrics, he has a 6-pitch mix. He throws his fastball 51% of the time. His fastball he doesn't throw hard. He throws about 93.5 miles an hour on average. But his fastball run value is a 15, and that's 93rd percentile. So even though he doesn't have a lot of heat on his fastball, he's got a lot of life on it. And that's where he gets his outs, is on his fastball. And he throws it 51% of the time, so it's basically his main pitch. He's also got, obviously, a very high K rate. You see it, he had 194 strikeouts this last year in 171 innings. He's got a 28.2% K rate. That's 84th percentile, and he doesn't walk guys, so 5.7 walk rate, and that's 87th percentile. So he throws his fastball a lot, gets a lot of strikeouts, and doesn't walk anyone. That sounds great, and I love it. But the way that he's talked about as he should be the Mets' number one target, and he's the main guy, and he's the best pitcher they can go out and get, I don't really see that. I see a really good pitcher, a really good number 2 pitcher. And on the Mets, he would be their number 1 pitcher right off the bat. Absolutely. He would make the Mets pitching staff better. He would be their number 1 pitcher right now. And if they go out and get him, it also doesn't prevent you from going out and making a deal for someone else and adding more to that pitching staff, because he's only going to make $6 million in arbitration this year. So he's not going to get paid all that much money. It wouldn't prevent you from doing anything else. So on that side, I love it. But I think the package you're going to have to give up, if Buster Olney is right and basically saying that the Twins might not even trade him, you're going to have to blow the Twins away with an offer. The Twins are clearly a rebuilding team. But because Joe Ryan still has 2 years of control left, if they don't get the offer that they want, or they're not blown away, they can just hold on to him till the trade deadline or trade him next offseason. They don't have to get rid of him right now. If he was in the last year of his deal, sure, maybe then you're looking to trade him. But he's got this year and another. So, yes, they like Tong. It's not just going to be Tong. You're talking about maybe Jonah Tong plus Jet Williams plus more to get Joe Ryan. And I'm not a prospect hugger. I have no problem trading prospects. Believe me, I have no problem trading. If you want Vientos and Beatty and all those guys, take them too. I don't care. I'm all for getting the better player and getting better overall as a team. But I think you can get more for Jonah Tong and Jet Williams than Joe Ryan. I think Freddie Peralta is a better pitcher, and I saw some people having that debate on Twitter yesterday, is would you rather have Joe Ryan or Freddie Peralta? Freddie Peralta is the much better pitcher. Now, you could say maybe Joe Ryan could be better, or maybe he's ascending. Well, Freddie Peralta just came off of his best season last year, and he had an ERA in the mid-2s. He's proven more in the major leagues, has Freddie Peralta. than Joe Ryan has, and I would rather have him, even though it is only for 1 year. And that 1 year left also makes him a lot cheaper. I don't think you're giving up Tong or Jet Williams or any of those guys for Freddie Peralta. You're probably giving up, Sproat and others. I saw a trade on Baseball Trade Values that had, I think it was Sproat and Clifford straight up for Freddie Peralta. Now, that might not get it done. You might have to give up a little bit more than that, especially if there's other teams involved trying to trade for him. That's just, in a vacuum, would that trade make sense? Yes, it does. The values line up. You're probably giving up a little bit more than that. But you're not giving up Tong in that trade. You're not giving up, Jet Williams in that trade. And I'd much rather do a deal that involves Sproat. Now, if you're telling me I'm getting Tarek Skubal or Hunter Green, yes, they're all available. Everyone except for Nolan McLean is available in that. So I have no problem trading those prospects. I just think you want to get the value that you're looking for, and the Mets need a number one. They don't need another number two or a number three. They need a number one. And at this point in his career, I don't think Joe Ryan is a number one. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Let me know in the comments. Who would you rather have between those two guys? I think it's a clear choice, but I know a lot of people are going to have other opinions. I think another part of Joe Ryan that maybe intrigued a lot of Mets fans was maybe the possibility that they would add Byron Buxton with Joe Ryan, and you'd obviously have to give up a much bigger package for that. And honestly, it would be a great deal, right? The Mets obviously have a need in center field, and getting Byron Buxton would be great when he is healthy, and that's a big if and when. He's not healthy very often, but when he is, he's one of the best power hitters in baseball, and he still plays a pretty good center field, and he makes only about $15 million a year for the next couple of years, so obviously a really good contract, a really good player, probably worth the injury risk for Byron Buxton, but I just don't see the Twins doing that. First off, we don't know if Byron Buxton would be willing to waive his no-trade clause to come to the Mets. It's obvious he's from Georgia. It seems like he really wants to go to the Braves if he's traded. He also really likes to be a Twin, so he also just wants to stay there as well. Would he want to go to New York? Would he want to go to the Mets? I don't know. I have doubts that he would. Also, I don't think they're going to trade them together because you're going to get less. If you're trading to one team for both of those players at the same time, you're going to get less as if you trade them separately to two different teams. And, I don't know that you're giving up a ton more to get Buxton. You are giving up more. That might make it Tong and Jet and then another top guy, and maybe you have to throw Sproat in there as well. It's just, I don't think it's a deal that's going to match up well, especially for Stearns, who clearly likes to develop pitching. He's not going to want to give up both of those young pitchers, and you might have to in a deal like that. So I don't think that's really a possibility. But yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities this offseason and going into these winter meetings. I think some deals will happen. I think we just have to... Listen, it's not on us. We're not the ones making the deals. I'm not making deals. I'm not telling you I have any sources or I know anything. This is just my opinion, and I know people have their own as well. But Joe Ryan is not necessarily a guy I would sell the farm for. I would love him, and I'm not going to be upset if the Mets trade a bunch of top prospects for Joe Ryan. I'm not. But I will, in the back of my mind, think, could they have done better? Could they have used those same prospects for a better player? I'm not against trading the prospects. I'm for trading them in the right deal and not wasting them. And I think that's where the disconnect is. Joe Ryan would be a huge upgrade for this team. I just don't know that I would give up the top guys for him. And it looks like, according to Buster Olney, if you want him, that's what you're going to have to do. And I just don't think that's going to happen. And now, could wake up tomorrow and the Mets have traded for Joe Ryan, and I'd still be happy. I'd still love the deal as long as you're not giving up McLean in that deal, and hopefully not Carson Benj. But hey, you might have to, right? If the Twins really want to keep him, or they're really looking for the best deal, you have to blow him away. Do you want Carson Benj in that deal? I don't know. That scares me a little bit. For Tarek Skubal, yes, Carson Benj can be in the deal. Jonah Tong can be in the deal. Jet Williams, everyone. I don't care. Go get the best pitcher in baseball. Joe Ryan, a number 2 or a 3 starter. Am I looking to do that? Probably not. Anyway, that's really all I got. We're going to have some more stuff going into the winter meetings, and I'm sure there'll be tons more to talk about. We didn't even get into Diaz or anything like that because there's no new information. And Pete Alonso seems like the backup plan now, maybe to Kyle Schwarber. That's the only thing. If you take one thing out of this video today, the Mets are definitely interested in Kyle Schwarber. And whether he'll be a Met or not, I don't know. I have doubts that he will, just because I think the Phillies will give him the best deal, or at least match anyone else's. But the Mets are clearly interested, and they want him. And if that's the case, they're looking for him over Pete Alonso. I think that's a mistake, but it's not my decision to make. Anyway, that's all I got, and until next time, let's go Mets.